Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be taking a look at functions. And now I should probably call that one functions up at the top. Now functions is a relatively advanced topic. Everything that we've done so far, it's relatively straightforward. We haven't had a lot of mysteries too late, but now we're actually going to start looking into mysteries and things are going to get complicated. We're going to basically be breaking functions into multiple components. The first one we're basically going to do is introduce you to the concept of a function as well as parameters. Then we're going to go ahead and split it to another video where we get in kind of where it gets a little complicated, something called scope. And then finally, we're going to be showing you, of course, when you get really sophisticated with lambda functions, which are basically anonymous functions if you're a lazy programmer, which all good programmers are lazy. So let's go ahead and show you a problem. Let's say that I'm working with a lot of numbers. I'll do n1, keep it 1. We'll do n2 equals 10, n3 equals 5. I don't know, we'll do 15. We'll stay to the theme here. And, we have ourselves a bunch of numbers. And now what we want to do is we basically want to go through and we want to take the average of these numbers. Now, you're sitting there going, okay, so 5 and 10, 15, and 15 is 30 and 20. That's going to get yourself, let's see, 20, 55. They divide by 222 and a half. Not too bad. But of course, what we want to do is we want to make it a little bit easier to do this calculation. I could sit here and say average equals, let's say n1 plus n2 plus n3 plus n4. Now, here's the question. Is this going to work? Pause before. Do you think this is going to work? Yeah, of course it's going to work. Not. You'll notice it divided n4 by 4. Order of operations. You got to make sure you be careful with that. There's our 12 and a half because, of course, when I did it over my head, I had 10 off already. Sigh. Of course, remember those things. So this is cool. So let's say we have a whole brand new set of numbers here. n1 equals 10, n2 equals 15, n3 equals 20, and 4 equals 25. Oh, let me get the copy pasted and do it again. Let me press run. 17 and a half. Oh, there's a whole new set of numbers. Oh boy, I'm going to come here. I'll copy paste it again. Let's see here. We'll do 15, 20. You're sitting here going, this is tedious. What's your point, man? What's your point? My point is, there we go. There's my 22 and a half. I win. So one of the things you'll see here is I'm copy pasting a lot. And whenever you copy paste, that should be a giant red flag in your mind saying something's wrong. I'm working too hard. This is not scalable. Every time I want another average, I got to write the entire thing out again. Oofda. That doesn't work very well. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do something scandalous, and I'm going to delete all of that code there. And we're going to go ahead and develop a function, which is basically going to be a reusable chunk of code for the purposes of calculating average whenever we need to actually calculate average. As a matter of fact, what I'm going to do here is I'll be very scandalous here, and I'm actually going to delete all those, but I want to leave these just for the purposes of demonstration. You'll see what I mean in a minute. So functions are very straightforward. They basically are going to be your own custom command that are going to do a wide variety of different things. So I'm going to go up to my tippy top here. Remember, you have to define a function before you can actually use a function. And I'm going to simply design an average function. So I'm going to go ahead and type in the word def, and I'm going to go ahead and type in average. Now, what we're doing is making ourselves our own command called average. Now, you'll notice it's pretty grumpy at us right now. It expects something. What it expects is it expects parameters. As you probably have known from many of the commands we've seen in Python, parameters are basically going to be those little pieces that allow us to go ahead and increase the functionality. Now, if you want to go all the way back, nouns is the fancy word there. So I'm going to do a parentheses. Now, our average function is going to be taking 4 different input values. Now, I'll keep it really easy here. I'll go, say, on n1, n1, n2, n3, and n4, colon. So what these are, our function here is going to expect to have 4 values inside of it. And what it's going to do is it's going to take those 4 values and it's going to attempt to average them and then print out the result. So one of the things you'll notice here is I put a little colon here. Now watch this. I'm going to press the enter key. And one of the things you'll notice is Python put a tab here. These tabs are the most annoying thing you will ever deal with if you're trying to get used to Python. If your spacing is not accurate or you're using a space instead of a tab, it breaks. So let's go ahead and do our calculation here. Let's see, A equals, because you can't use the word average again because average would be average. A equals n1 plus n2 plus n3 plus n4 slash 4. And then we're going to print A. So what this will do is this will take these 4 parameters, and these parameters now are assigned these variable values. Now, right now, you are sitting here going, wait a minute, that's not cool, man. You've got variables up here, but you've got variables down here. They have the same name. That's a problem. It's actually not a problem. And as a matter of fact, to eliminate more confusion, I'm actually going to delete all of these just to show you how flexible this is going to be. So what we have here is we have these 4 parameters. We're going to do some math and we're going to print it. So how do we use this function? All we're going to do is type in the name of this function, and we're just going to send the variables one by one. 5, 10, 15, 20. Now you'll notice here that PyCharm has this nice little trick which will actually pop up and tell you what the variables that you're assigning are. Kind of cool. So let's go ahead and run the code, and what you'll observe is it prints 12.5. The reason that worked is because it took the value, sent it into here, this value became this value, I computed the average, saved it as A, and then I printed it and basically sent it back to the user. Now, if we want to keep this paradigm going here, of course, yes, I copy pasted, relax, relax. So if I come in here and I say 15 and I say 20 and I say 25, I guess this would become 30, this would become 25, this would become 20, and this, of course, would become 15. If I now run this code, watch this. There's my 22.5. Yeah, I'm smart. So the cool thing here is we have now built ourselves a new function that can now compute the average rather than us having all that tedious memory and moving variables around and trying to get all those components ready to go. And you can see just how flexible this really can be. Now, the cool thing whenever you're working, I'm supposed to have a second enter there. The cool thing with functions is we can have functions of functions. We can have functions that help functions. We have these things called decorators. We're not going to deal with that anytime soon. Those get very complicated. But you have an idea of just how useful these particular commands can be for this purpose. Now, you're probably sitting here going, your function's okay, but like, what if I did this? Well, we're going to have a problem. You'll notice our function is looking for all 4 of those inputs. We only gave it 2 of those inputs, so it had a heart attack on us. Now, if I really want to break our average function that we created here, I could come in here and do something really lazy like this. Oh boy, why would you do this? Ooh, capital D. Let's be extra scandalous. If I send this one in here, it's going to have another heart attack because of the fact that we're basically sitting here going, hey, is it okay if you divide all these strings? Python does not know that you sent it strings. So we'd have to actually build some functionality inside of our function. It's getting a little complicated there. In order to prevent the user from passing the wrong strings, we could actually use a decorator function to make that a little bit tighter. But again, we're not going to worry about that. I just want you to be aware that Python is not smart enough to know that you did something naughty. You, as the programmer, have to be able to catch something like that before you basically break it. So that is a really, really helpful method to do it. Now let's go ahead and, I like this. My average function is actually pretty groovy here, so I'll kind of keep rolling with it. Let's go ahead and create ourselves a new function here. And I'm going to go ahead and make this one really, really elementary, just for something to keep it a little bit easy for us. But I'm going to go ahead and create a function. Actually, we should probably be a little specific. Space takes an average of 4 numbers and prints it. We should always be a little specific, just in case people have to come back and look at that stuff later. So let's go ahead and create ourselves something a little bit elementary. I'm going to go ahead and make a function that takes a string and says hello to that string. So I'm going to go ahead and say hi. Say hi to. And then I'll put a name here. Don't use the word name. Person's name. I'll keep it nice and simple today. Enter. So what we want to do is we want to take this value of person's name and we want to say hi to them. So I'm going to go ahead and get myself printf string here. Hi to person's name. Super. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to call this function. I'm going to go ahead and say hi to, and I will go ahead and say, what's another P name that we can, Pieter, we can do a Pieter. Pieter, I always spell, let's do Peter, why not? Let's go ahead and run my code and watch what happens. Now you'll see here it says hi to Peter. That makes sense because we took a string named Peter, sent it into this thing that says person's name, and then we went ahead and we said hi to them before ending my little function here. That's pretty cool. Now, what would happen if I came in here and I said, say hi to blank? Let's go ahead and run my code and see what happens. Oh, no. You notice it gets angry at us one more time. It actually, just like we saw before, we didn't send a value. We didn't pass any value to my function. So it got very, very grumpy at us on account of the fact that there was nothing there. Wouldn't it be cool if there was a way that it would still allow us to get away with this? And the answer is yes, there is a way, and that's called default parameters. We can actually tell Python that this little guy here, say hi to a person's name, I need another space here. Basically, we can give it an initial value if somebody forgets to send us a value. So I can actually come up here and I can say, we'll go with Paul again, because why not? Now, what you'll notice here is your brain's saying, I'm going to send Peter up here, but it becomes Paul. No. It becomes Paul if I do not send a value to it. So this one right here, say hi to Peter, will send Peter into person's name. It'll say hi to person's name. This one with the blank will instead initialize that person's name value to Paul and then say hi, Paul. Let's take a look. Aha, hi to Peter, hi to Paul. I think we're getting a bit of biblical references here, but that's perfectly fine to us as well. Now, one of the things you probably noticed a few moments ago is the fact that I wrote a function, used the function, wrote a function, used a function. I can still take averages. That's perfectly fine because once it has been created, I can still use it over and over again. But what I can't do is I can't call a function before I've created it. So what you'll notice here is I move say hi to Peter up here. Now, if I come here and press run, you'll see that it gives us a heart attack and saying it's not defined. It isn't defined because it wasn't defined at the time that I called it. That's one of those common mistakes people make, is to try to create something before they can actually use it. A lot of times people will take functions and they'll stack just a massive pile of them at the tippy top of their code and basically go, why is that not working? Now, the reason it's not working is because you either didn't call it, or you called it on the wrong side, or you called it too soon, or you called it from somebody else. Now, one of the things that gets very, 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 very interesting here is if we try to make functions call functions. Now you're going, uh-oh, I see what you did there. Def break Python. I'm not going to pass any values. I'm simply going to say average 1, 2, 3, 4, and we'll say hi. Ooh, we have to say hi to, we'll say Roger this time. Now, of course, if I run this code, nothing's going to happen. It won't break at all. We get exit code 0. So what we're going to do is we're going to call it. Now you'll notice I have no parameters at all here. That's okay though. Watch this. Boop. You'll observe that nothing bad happens. That is because in Python, once a function is loaded into memory, is it accessible to other functions in the program? You're starting to see exactly where we're going with this. And that's exactly why functions are so powerful, is that we can make a function to do a thing and then call it with another function to do a different thing if that is something that we need to achieve in a particular program. In this case, my break Python command did not break anything at all. It simply called these two individual commands from inside of itself. Pretty cool, huh? Like I said, it's a very, very, very handy thing that you can do. Now, these are pretty useful. Not really, they're okay. They're tolerable. They're tolerable. I break Python here. I'll go down here and create myself a new notepad. Returning values. Pop, 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 pop. Super. Now, one of the things you probably noticed from working in those other modules, especially the math module, is when you called a command, you got a value back. It didn't print anything. These are all printing things. They're basically taking values and doing magic to them and basically bouncing it back off so that people are able to kind of see the individual components inside of it. But what if we wanted to do something to the value that we send and then return that value back? For example, let's do a really, really basic example here. I'll say first name equals, let's see here. Who should we pick on? Hetty, of course. Last name equals Lamar because she's amazing. So we have Hetty Lamar. That's Headley. And what we want to do here, did I spell Lamar wrong? I would not be surprised if I spelled Lamar wrong. I feel so bad. And typo, oh no, I don't want llama. Nice try, Python. And what I want to do is I want to write a function that puts these two together with a nice pretty comma in the middle and returns it. So now, normally, of course, you're sitting here saying a new name. You could do something like this, and you could say, obviously, a last name plus comma or space plus first name. You could do something like that, print new name, and you're like, haha, I win. I've defeated you. Look at that. It says Lamar Hetty. Nicely done. Yeah, but that's not the point. What we want to do is we want to build a function that does all that work for us, especially if we want to get sophisticated later on, which we could if we wanted. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new function called format name. And it's going to take two things. It's going to take first name. We can say name first, and it's going to take name last. I like that. Cool. And now if we wanted to be a little more careful in here, we could actually come in here and define this as a default, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and press colon and press enter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine them just like I did a second ago. I'm going to say new name equals. We're going to do the same thing we did before. We say name last plus comma, whoa, let's be as professionals here, plus name first. Now I'm going to bring in something brand new. I'm going to type return new name. So what's going to happen is when I call this, it's going to take all this good work that I did, shove it into a value, and then it's going to send it back to replace it. Let me show you what I mean here. So I'm going to come down here. I'm always going to get zing for that. So let me come down here and let's go ahead and get a little, use this function. So I'm going to say fixed name, not fixed name, let's call it FN just to be safe. I'm going to say format name, and I'm going to ask for first name first. So we're going to say first name, comma, last name. Now I'm going to come down to my next line, and I'm going to then go ahead and print FN. So what we're doing here is we're going to take these two values. We're going to take heady there, send it to here, last name to there. Of course, you're sitting there saying the variables are all mixed up. That's okay. We're going to deal with that problem later, trust me. And then we're going to assign this FN, which will end up being a string, of course, with the new name. Let's give it a try. You'll observe here that it works with Hedy Lamarr. So, of course, if I wanted to have some fun with this, you can get a little more complicated. If I wanted to flip the two inputs here, it would get me a different value. But you can see it gives me that nice and neatly formatted item with this return value. Let's do an example with numbers. I'll give myself a little bit of space here. See how I am because I didn't put enough space there. Relax, my guy. Relax, my guy. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and create a nice boring function called add1. And what this is going to do is it's going to add 1 to a number. Def add 1 number. And this time, instead of going like this, sum equals number plus 1, I'm instead going to simply do return number plus 1. What that will do is that will take the number that I send, add 1 to it, and then send it back. Let's give it a try. Val equals 5. Well, so add 1. 5. Print val. Now, what we expect here is we expect to have a value of 6 because we're going to take the value of 5, shove it into number, add 1 to it, and then we're going to return it back to the user. So if I were to run this real quick, you'll notice I get a value of 6, and I skipped that little bit with the sum. Now, you're sitting there going, well, if I wanted to update this function, I could have just said return name last blah, 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 plus that inside of here rather than going ahead and doing it the way that you did it here. But both of those are acceptable. Generally, this is considered a little bit cleaner just because, again, it's very, very simplified. And a lot of these functions, as you can probably tell, are relatively elementary. They're not going to get too complicated until later on. And trust me, they will get complicated. So as you can see, functions are a great way to stop you from having to go ahead and use code over and over. There's actually a lot of other little sneaky things in here that are a little outside of the scope, including things like kwargs and args, which actually allow you to send arbitrary numbers of elements. We can send lists in here. There's a lot of really scary things we could do. We also don't have to return only one value. We could technically return multiple values or return things like lists and tuples. But again, that's getting a little outside of the context. Speaking of context, on our next video, we're going to be taking a look at scope, a common problem when you start working a lot with functions. Enjoy.